The first rays of Georgia sunlight had barely crested the pines when the drill whistle split the humid morning air at Fort Braxton. 52 recruits snapped to attention in perfect formation, except one. Olivia Mitchell stood apart, right arm trembling against her chest, her slender frame made smaller by the oversized PT uniform. In the golden dawn light, her mousy brown hair tinged with gold was scraped into a regulation bun so tight it pulled at her temples. "Get your scrawny ass back in formation, Mitchell!" Drill Sergeant Mike Rodriguez's voice cracked like a bullwhip across the field. At 50, the weathered Green Beret veteran commanded respect and fear in equal measure. The crow's feet around his eyes had been earned in jungle warfare, not from smiling. "Sergeant, I need to see medical." Mitchell's voice barely carried across the field. "My arm." Rodriguez stalked forward, each deliberate step crushing the dew-covered grass. Vietnam had taught him that weakness gets men killed. He'd buried too many friends to tolerate it now. "Your arm!" His face inches from hers, coffee and rage on his breath. "Did you hear that, recruits? Princess has a boo-boo!" Laughter rippled through the formation. Evan Morgan, 6'3" of pure muscle and arrogance, stepped forward from his position at the front. His shoulders blocked out half the horizon as he moved closer. "Should have stayed home, Princess," Morgan sneered. His father was General Morgan, a fact he never let anyone forget. "Military's for real soldiers, not people who cry about a hurt arm." Rodriguez continued his countdown. 10, 9, 8. Each number punctuated by Mitchell's unmoving stance, her eyes fixed on a point beyond his shoulder. The tremor in her right arm seemed to worsen under the scrutiny. As Mitchell shifted her weight, her sleeve rode up just an inch, revealing the edge of dark ink against pale skin. She quickly tugged it down with her left hand, but not before Tyler Chen noticed. "Yo, Princess got herself some gangster ink," Chen called out, already reaching for his phone. "What is that? A prison tat?" From his position in the third row, Jake Sullivan narrowed his eyes. The Navy SEAL had recently returned from Panama, Operation Just Cause, and something about Mitchell struck him as familiar. Not her face, but the way she distributed her weight despite the apparent injury. The stance of someone who'd spent time in combat zones. The commotion drew the attention of Captain James Morgan, who approached from the administrative buildings. "What's the situation here, Rodriguez?" Morgan demanded, his voice carrying the authority of West Point and 2 tours in Desert One. "Sir, Private Mitchell is refusing to participate in PT and won't return to formation." Morgan assessed Mitchell with cold efficiency. "You have a medical waiver, Mitchell?" She shook her head slightly, maintaining her silence. "Then get back in formation or get off my base," Morgan dismissed, already turning away. In his office overlooking the parade grounds, Colonel William Harrington watched the scene unfold. At 62, Harrington had served in Vietnam, Grenada, and led special operations in Desert Storm. His weathered face had seen too much war to be impressed by peacetime posturing. On his desk lay Mitchell's file, immaculate service records, perfect academic scores, clean background checks. Too perfect. In 40 years of service, Harrington had learned that perfection was often the first sign of fabrication. His secure line rang. "Harrington." "Bill, it's General Carson. About that recruit you asked about, Mitchell. Run her prints through human database Delta 7, not the regular channels." "Delta 7? That's Black Ops archives from—" "Just do it, Bill. And keep this between us." Back on the training field, Rodriguez had ordered Mitchell to run the obstacle course, documentary evidence for your discharge paperwork. The entire formation moved to the obstacle course, Mitchell walking between Morgan and Chen, her gait steady despite favoring her right arm. Sullivan watched her scan the environment, checking exit points, noting positions of personnel, identifying potential threats. Not the behavior of a washout recruit, the behavior of someone trained to survive behind enemy lines. The obstacle course loomed ahead, its various challenges designed to break the strongest recruits. The rope climb stood tallest, a 30-foot ascent that challenged even the fittest with both arms functional. "Ladies first," Rodriguez mocked, gesturing Mitchell toward the course. Mitchell approached the first obstacle, low crawl under barbed wire. She studied it briefly, then dropped to her stomach. Her technique was flawless, using primarily her legs and left arm to propel herself while keeping her right arm protected. She moved through the wire faster than most recruits with both arms fully functional. "Lucky," Chen muttered. The wall climb came next, 8 feet of vertical wooden planks with minimal handholds. Mitchell stood before it, the tremor in her right arm visibly worse. She took 3 steps back, then burst forward with explosive speed. She hit the wall with her left side leading, used her momentum to reach high with her left hand, and somehow swung her body up and over in one fluid motion. The entire maneuver took less than 4 seconds. Sullivan moved closer to Rodriguez. "That technique, where did she learn that?" Rodriguez nodded, eyes locked on Mitchell. "Not in basic, that's for damn sure." The rope climb was the main event. 30 feet of thick manila rope, no knots, just raw grip strength and technique needed to ascend. "This ought to be good," Morgan said loudly. "Princess can barely hold her arm up, let alone climb a rope." Mitchell stood at the base, looking up its entire length. Her left hand reached out, grasping the rope experimentally. Then in a movement that made Sullivan straighten with recognition, she wrapped her legs around the rope in a precise pattern, a technique taught only in Buddhist training for Navy SEALs. "Holy shit," Sullivan whispered. "That's a SEAL Team 6 fast rope technique." Using primarily her legs and left arm, Mitchell ascended with mechanical precision. Each movement calculated to maximize efficiency while minimizing strain on her injury. The crowd fell silent as she reached the top in 43 seconds with one arm compromised. The current company record with both arms was 38. When her feet touched the ground, she turned to face Rodriguez and spoke her first full sentence since the confrontation began. "Done, Sergeant." Her voice was calm, carrying no trace of exertion. Rodriguez's face showed complete confusion mixed with growing suspicion. "That was, adequate." He glanced at Sullivan, who was staring at Mitchell with newfound intensity. Captain Morgan stepped forward. "Rodriguez, have her disassemble and reassemble an M16A2. Let's see how she handles equipment with that injured arm." As the formation moved to the weapons assembly area, Colonel Harrington appeared, his face unreadable as he watched Mitchell. He caught Sullivan's eye and nodded slightly, a signal between experienced operators that something significant was happening. At the weapons station, Rodriguez pointed Mitchell to a table at the front. "Since you're so talented, Mitchell, show us how it's done. 2 minutes to properly assemble this weapon." Mitchell reached for the parts with her left hand. Her right hand moved to support the lower receiver, but the tremor made her grip unstable. The parts slipped, clattering onto the table. Each mistake drew more laughter, and camera phones focused on her growing collection of failures. Sullivan watched with growing certainty that something wasn't right. As a weapons specialist in the SEALs, he'd seen plenty of recruits fumble assemblies. What Mitchell was doing was different. She was dropping parts in a specific sequence. "That's impossible," he muttered. Megan Walker, standing nearby, whispered, "What's impossible?" "She's not fumbling. She's demonstrating a disassembly sequence from the Advanced Armorer's Manual, but backwards and from memory." Sullivan's eyes widened. "And the pattern of the drops, it's Morse code." As Mitchell continued to drop parts in her carefully choreographed failure, Sullivan decoded her message. DANGER. Colonel Harrington stepped forward, his voice cutting through the laughter. "Captain Morgan, Sergeant Rodriguez, Private Sullivan, my office now. Mitchell, you too." As they left, Tyler Chen called out, "Bye, Princess. Don't forget to pack." Harrington turned, his voice ice cold. Mr. Chen, one more word and you'll be doing push-ups until Christmas. Is that clear? Yes, sir, Chen stammered, suddenly pale. Colonel Harrington's office was a testament to 4 decades of military service. Shadow boxes displaying medals from Vietnam to Desert Storm lined the walls. Maps of global conflict zones covered a bulletin board. A secure SATCOM radio hummed quietly in the corner. Direct line to the Pentagon. Harrington locked the door, then activated a small electronic device on his desk. Surveillance countermeasure, he explained. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. He turned to Mitchell. Your background check came back. It's interesting. Perfect scores, clean record, normal childhood in Ohio. Absolutely flawless. He paused. Too flawless. The kind of background file that's been sanitized by intelligence services. Mitchell remained silent, still cradling her injured arm. I made some calls, used some connections from my time at Langley. Mentioned your climbing technique, the way you move, that partial tattoo we saw. Harrington's voice dropped. One name kept coming up. Unit 455, Silver Cobra Squadron. Rodriguez scoffed. That's just a military urban legend, sir. Ghost units that don't exist. 7 years ago, Harrington continued, ignoring him, a joint operation in Afghanistan went sideways. 5 operators went in, 1 came out. The survivor held off Soviet special forces for 72 hours, protecting the extraction point for a Delta Force unit that was pinned down. Morgan shook his head. I've never heard of this operation. You wouldn't have. It was classified above top secret, part of the shadow war against Soviet expansion. During those 3 days, this operator was captured, tortured, but never broke. Never gave up Delta's position. Harrington focused on Mitchell. The survivor had nerve damage from electrical torture, permanent tremor in the right arm. He stepped closer. Want to know what unit that operative belonged to? The room was silent except for the hum of the SATCOM. Show me your arm, Mitchell, Harrington ordered. That's a direct order from a superior officer. For several long seconds, Mitchell didn't move. Then slowly she rolled up her sleeve. A black snake with 7 distinct coils wrapped around her forearm. Its mouth opened to reveal fangs sunk into a human skull. Below it, numbers were etched into the design. 455. Mother of God, Rodriguez whispered. You're real, Morgan breathed. Silver Cobra is real. Mitchell finally spoke, her voice quiet but carrying absolute authority. I need to speak with Colonel Harrington alone. Like hell, Morgan began. Captain, Harrington interrupted. Wait outside with Sergeant Rodriguez. Sullivan, you stay. Once they had left, Mitchell's demeanor changed subtly. Her posture straightened, her eyes hardened. Even the tremor in her arms seemed secondary to the sudden intensity she projected. I'm not here for basic training, Colonel. Someone on this base sold out my unit. Her voice was clinical, detached. 4 ghosts are dead because of intel that could only have come from Fort Braxton. Why come in as a recruit? Sullivan asked. Because the traitor is watching. They've been monitoring every new arrival, looking for threats. If I came in as an investigator, they'd vanish. But a weak recruit, someone to mock and dismiss? She shook her head. No threat at all. Mitchell pulled a small device from her pocket that looked like a thumb drive. I've been recording everything. Not video, that's too obvious. Metadata, communication patterns, unusual financial activity. She plugged it into Harrington's computer. Data flowed across the screen, complex patterns of communication, financial transactions, personnel movements. 5 names kept appearing in correlation with known Soviet communication nodes. All 5 are on this base. Her finger traced patterns on the display. One of them sold out my unit in Afghanistan. Sullivan leaned closer. These communication patterns, they match protocols I saw in Panama. Russian advisors were using them with Noriega's forces. A knock interrupted them. Megan Walker entered, her face flushed. "Colonel, sorry to interrupt, but Sergeant Baker was asking strange questions about the new recruits, specifically about anyone with prior service or family in special operations." Mitchell's attention snapped to her. "When?" "Right after you climbed the rope. He seemed really interested in how you managed it with your injury." Mitchell exchanged looks with Harrington. "He saw the technique, recognized it. He's checking if I'm a threat." Without warning, she moved to the window, peering out carefully. Two vehicles that weren't there during morning PT, black sedan, government plates, but wrong sequence for base vehicles. Silver pickup with mud pattern from the East Access Road. Harrington grabbed his radio. "Security, this is Colonel Harrington. Lock down the base. No one in or out." The radio crackled back. "Sir, Sergeant Baker cleared the East Gate 5 minutes ago. Said he had a family emergency." "He knows," Mitchell stated flatly. "Someone tipped him." Sullivan realized the implications. The announcements over the PA system about clearing the weapons area and bringing you to the colonel's office. Baker must have heard. Mitchell was already moving. "We need to pursue. Baker's heading for his handler. This is our only chance to catch them both." "Baker?" Rodriguez asked from the doorway, having overheard. "I've served with him for 10 years. He's logistics, runs supply convoys." "That's the perfect cover," Mitchell explained. "Access to schedules, routes, personnel deployments." Sullivan nodded. "His convoys were never hit in Afghanistan. Every other supply sergeant had incidents, but Baker's routes were always clear." "He wasn't lucky," Mitchell said coldly. "He was protected. He fed them information, and they kept his convoys safe in exchange." "We need vehicles," Harrington ordered. "Morgan, coordinate with—" "No," Mitchell interrupted. "Too slow. He's heading for his handler. I need someone who knows the terrain, every deer path, every shortcut." Morgan, who had been silent since the revelation, suddenly spoke. "I grew up here. My father was stationed at Braxton for 15 years. I know every inch of this place and the surrounding area." Mitchell studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You're driving." "I'm coming too," Sullivan added, his SEAL training kicking in. "Too many," Mitchell shook her head. "Morgan and I only. Smaller footprint, faster movement." She was already stripping off her PT shirt to reveal a compression top underneath. From an ankle holster none of them had noticed, she pulled a Beretta 92F with sound suppressor. "How did you—" Morgan started. "Ghost privileges," Mitchell said simply. "We need your vehicle now." As they rushed outside, Rodriguez called after them. "What should we do?" "Watch the other 4 names," Mitchell replied. "If any of them try to run, you'll know they're involved too." Morgan's vehicle was a lifted Ford Bronco, aggressive, powerful, and perfect for what they needed. He gunned it toward the East Gate, the guards waving them through on Harrington's orders. "How do you know where he's going?" Morgan asked, taking a corner at dangerous speed. "Pattern analysis. Baker's been making drops at the same 3 locations for months. Always during his family emergencies." Mitchell worked her phone with her left hand, her right trembling against her leg. "He doesn't know that I know." The silver pickup's tracks were fresh in the morning dew, heading east toward the Chattahoochee National Forest. "There's an old Forest Service road 4 miles ahead," Morgan said, pushing the Bronco harder. "He'll turn north there. It leads to an abandoned ranger station." Mitchell nodded. "Isolated, multiple escape routes, good sight lines. Perfect for a meet." She checked her weapon with practiced efficiency despite the tremor. "And because I've been tracking satellite phone activity from that location for 2 weeks, someone's been using a secure line there. Only people who use encrypted sat phones in rural Georgia are drug dealers and intelligence assets." Morgan glanced at her, seeing not the weak recruit he'd mocked, but the predator she truly was. "I'm sorry for everything," The way we treated you, save it, Mitchell cut him off. Guilt later. Focus now. They hit the Forest Service road at 70 in mph, the Bronco fishtailing on gravel. Morgan fought for control, kept pushing. The forest closed in around them, shadows dancing between the trees. There, Mitchell pointed. Fresh tire tracks veered off onto an even smaller path, barely visible through the undergrowth. Morgan didn't hesitate, cranking the wheel hard. Branches scraped against the Bronco's paint. The ranger station appeared through the trees, a ramshackle building that had seen better decades. Baker's silver pickup was parked outside, engine still running. But there was another vehicle too, a black SUV with diplomatic plates. The handler, Mitchell breathed. We got them both. Wait for backup, Morgan asked. No time. They're probably destroying evidence right now. Mitchell checked her weapon. You're not trained for this. Stay here. Call it in. Like hell. Morgan produced a Colt MY-911 from under his seat, his father's service pistol from Vietnam. I may be an asshole, but I'm an asshole who knows how to shoot. Mitchell almost smiled. Ever been in a real firefight? No. Then follow my lead and try not to die. Your death would create too much paperwork. They exited the vehicle silently, Mitchell moving with predatory grace despite her injury. Morgan tried to emulate her movement, suddenly aware of how loud his footsteps sounded on the gravel. Voices carried from inside the station. Mitchell held up two fingers, two voices, both male. She pointed to herself, then the front door, then to Morgan in the back. He nodded, understanding. She counted down on her fingers. 3, 2, 1. She hit the front door hard, weapon up and sweeping. Nobody move! Baker was at a table with another man, Eastern European features, expensive suit, diplomatic identification visible on the table. Laptop computers and stacks of cash covered the surface between them. Both men froze for a split second. Then everything went sideways. The handler flipped the table toward Mitchell, while Baker went for a weapon hidden under his jacket. Mitchell sidestepped the table, tracking the handler, but her tremor threw off her first shot. It went wide, embedding in the wall behind him. Baker cleared his weapon, a Makarov PM, standard KGB issue, swinging it toward Mitchell. Time slowed. She could see his finger tightening on the trigger, knew her tremor would make her second shot unreliable at this distance. A gunshot exploded from the back door. Baker staggered forward, his shot going wild, and collapsed. Morgan stood in the doorway, his father's Colt smoking, face pale but determined. The handler used the distraction to lunge for the window. Mitchell pivoted and fired twice. The Mozambique drill ingrained in her muscle memory, overcoming her tremor. 2 rounds center mass, one to the head. He crashed through the glass anyway from momentum, landing in a heap outside. The silence after gunfire was deafening. Mitchell kept her weapon trained on Baker, while Morgan covered the handler through the broken window. Both men were down, but Baker was still breathing. Barely. Clear, Mitchell announced after checking both bodies. She knelt beside Baker, applying pressure to the chest wound even as blood frothed at his lips. Baker, you're going to die, but you can die with some honor. Tell me who else is involved. How many more units are you targeting? Baker's eyes focused on her with difficulty. You're 4x55. Thought you were all dead. I'm hard to kill. Who else, Baker? Who recruited you? He coughed, spraying blood. Thought I was Patriot. They said CIA was overreaching, needed to be controlled. Who said? Mitchell pressed. Who's running your network? But Baker's eyes had already gone glassy, his final secrets dying with him. Morgan stood frozen, still pointing his Colt at the window. I killed him. You saved my life, Mitchell corrected, gently taking the weapon from his shaking hands. He would have shot me. My tremor. I couldn't have made that shot in time. The sound of approaching vehicles filled the air. Backup finally arriving. Mitchell quickly photographed everything on the table before the scene would be locked down. Financial records, communication logs, target packages for future operations. 3 more units, she said, reading from one document. They were planning to hit 3 more special operations units deploying to Saudi Arabia. Operation Desert Shield would have been compromised. Harrington arrived with a full security detail, taking in the scene with professional assessment. Status? 2 hostiles down, Mitchell reported. Baker and his handler. Diplomatic credentials identify him as Alexei Petrov, cultural attaché at the Soviet Embassy in Washington. We have intel on a larger network. She handed him a thumb drive she'd pulled from the laptop. This needs to go to counterintelligence immediately. Outstanding work. Harrington turned to Morgan. You too, son. That took guts. I just followed her lead, sir. Morgan was still pale, still processing the fact that he'd taken a human life. The aftermath investigation rocked Fort Braxton to its core. The intelligence Mitchell had recovered revealed a network spanning 4 military bases with 12 compromised personnel. The takedown operations were swift and coordinated, guided by her analysis. 2 days later, Mitchell stood in Colonel Harrington's office, her arm in a proper medical sling. The base doctors had been horrified at the nerve damage she'd been enduring without treatment. What now? Harrington asked. Your cover's blown. Everyone knows who you are. My work here is done, Mitchell replied. Silver Cobra may be officially dead, but there are other ghosts out there, other units that need protection. You could stay, train our people. God knows they could learn from you. Mitchell shook her head. That's not who I am, Colonel. I'm not a teacher. I'm a hunter. A knock on the door interrupted them. Rodriguez entered, followed by Morgan, Chen, and Walker. They stood awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. We wanted to apologize, Morgan said, speaking for the group. The way we treated you was inexcusable. You couldn't have known, Mitchell said simply. That's not the point, Morgan interjected. We judged you based on appearance, mocked you for showing what we thought was weakness. Mitchell held up her hand, stopping him. You want forgiveness? Fine, you're forgiven. But don't do it for me. Do it for the next person who doesn't look like they belong, because there will be a next person, and they might not be a ghost. They might just be someone trying their best. The group absorbed this in silence. Can I ask, Chen said hesitantly, about Afghanistan? What really happened? Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. You want a war story? Heroes and villains? Clear-cut battles? She shook her head. War isn't like that. It's mud and blood and friends dying for reasons that stop making sense. It's holding position while electricity runs through your body because giving up means more good people die. She looked at each of them. You want to honor what happened? Be better. Train harder. Look out for each other. And never, ever judge a book by its cover. As they filed out, Sullivan remained behind. That night in Afghanistan, you saved my unit. I was with Delta Force. I had support, Mitchell corrected. I had the knowledge that American soldiers were counting on me. That's all the support I needed. Sullivan pulled something from his pocket, his Navy SEAL Trident pin. This kept me alive that night. Your Overwatch kept me alive. I want you to have it. Mitchell looked at the pin for a long moment, then accepted it with her trembling hand. This means something, Sullivan. I'll carry it with honor. 3 days later, Mitchell disappeared from Fort Braxton as quietly as she had arrived. Her barracks room was empty, her paperwork filed, her false identity erased from the system, but her impact remained. Rodriguez implemented new training protocols, emphasizing respect for all recruits regardless of appearance or perceived limitations. Morgan, having faced both the shame of his prejudice and the reality of combat, approached his duties with newfound humility. He was selected for Delta Force 6 months later, carrying the lessons Mitchell had taught him. Colonel Harrington received a secure communique from an untraceable source. The Berlin Wall is falling, but the war isn't over. Silver cobras still hunt. Stay safe, Colonel. The Cold War was ending, but not for the ghosts who fought in the shadows. 1 year later, Jake Sullivan, now an instructor at Fort Braxton, gathered a group of recruits around him during a break in training. Among them was a slight young man who had been struggling with push-ups, enduring mockery from his stronger peers. "Let me tell you a story," Sullivan began, "about a recruit with a trembling hand who turned out to be the most lethal operator I've ever met." As the recruits listened, rapt, Sullivan told the sanitized version of Mitchell's story. No classified details, just the important parts. That strength comes in many forms. That judgment based on appearance is the weakness of the judge, not the judge. Somewhere out there, Sullivan concluded, that operator is still fighting, still hunting, still protecting us, even though we'll never know her name or thank her for her sacrifice. He looked pointedly at the struggling recruit, then at the others who had mocked him. Remember that the next time you're tempted to judge someone who doesn't fit your idea of what a soldier looks like. The greatest warrior I ever met couldn't hold a cup of coffee without spilling it, but she saved a generation of American soldiers and helped bring down the Soviet Union. As the sun set over Fort Braxton, Sullivan touched the spot on his uniform where his trident had been. He didn't regret giving it away. It was where it belonged now, with a ghost who had earned it in blood and sacrifice. And somewhere out there, Mitchell continued her hunt. The tremor in her hand was a constant reminder of the price paid for freedom. But it hadn't stopped her. It never would. Ghosts don't retire. They just fade until needed again.